Tell me about your Pride days when you were fighting over in Japan. How are the girls?
Oh my God. In Japan, I smashed the hottest Japanese chick ever.
You had to give her some of that BBC?
If I had one, I would have gave it to her.
You had some amazing fights in Pride. You had the Ricardo Arona where you picked him up and slam him.
I was really mad at Ricardo Arona, so I wasn't trying to kill him, but I was just trying to slam I was trying to slam him through the mat.
I have never met somebody who's ever stepped in a cage just to show up and lose. I've never met a person.
I'm going to have to correct you. I just thought about it. There are people with all due respect.
You know, goddamn right now, Islam Makhachev is pound. I mean, there's got to be a point in time. Go ahead, Rampage. I'm sorry. This is your question. Go ahead.
Yeah. Have you ever fought Islam?
Me? No, I never fought Islam.
Well, shut the up and let me talk. I fought on God damn it. I fought John Jones.
Oh, it's 15-time world champion, Demetrious Johnson. You're listening to the Mighty Cast.
Rampage is here.
You did way better on that.
All right.
Good. Okay. In 3, 2, 1. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another episode of the Mighty Cast. And I am joined by my good friend. I like to call I just like to refer to him his black ass. Ladies and gentlemen, can you please help me welcome Rampage Jackson to the Mighty Cast? What's going on, Rampage? How you doing, brother?
Yeah, we had a podcast today with what's her name? Fionn Davis. Yeah, jiu-jitsu athlete, and she said she want to fight you in a super fight.
No, she didn't say she wanted to fight me in a super fight. That was you. No, it wasn't you. I'm not going to throw you under the bus. That was that's our boy Luke Rockhold making up some damn fictional stories to try to get me to join CGI Invitational and fight this young lady. I want no smoke. I want nothing to do with it. I don't want to get tapped out. I am a gi boy. I'm not a no gi boy.
So we going on record is that you scared of her. That's what we going on record.
No,
right?
I didn't say that. I didn't say I was scared of her. Right?
That's
just
what it
because I don't.
like.
No, just because if my wife wants to fight me and I say no, I'm not gonna fight my wife because I know I'm gonna beat her, doesn't mean I'm scared of her. And I might say I know I'm gonna beat the woman. I've never seen her grapple before. I'm pretty sure she's damn good. She probably tear my knees apart, but I don't want no smoke. I want peace and love. That's all I want, dog.
All right, touche. I understand.
Okay. Now I'm gonna get right into it. Now, Rampage, I followed your career from the very beginning. You fighting in Pride, you fighting in the UFC, you fighting in King of the Cage, pretty much all over the damn place. But I'm assuming that your infancy into mixed martial arts was wrestling, right? Like, did you start wrestling in high school, or when did you start wrestling?
I started wrestling when I was 17 years old. I was late to the game, but I fell in love with wrestling, and it was very hard for me to kind of grasp it because I've never heard of collegiate style wrestling before. And I thought when I signed up for the team, I thought it was pro wrestling, and I was in for a rude. Never heard of it. True story.
Oh God! You know what? I actually got I actually got in a fight with somebody. It was my first street fight because I was in love with WWE, and one of the guys I went to elementary with, he goes, "You know that shit's fake, right?" And I was like, "No, it's not." I was like, when Stone Cold Stunner is fighting people, he's actually stunning them. He's breaking their necks. He goes, "Dude, that's so fake." He goes, "What I do is collegiate wrestling, and it's legit, and it's real." I was like, "And your point?" He goes, "I bet you my collegiate wrestling beat your WWE." I was like, "Bet." And we met at the flagpole, and we fought. And he slammed me. Once he slammed me, I thought it was a real fight. And so we started throwing hands. I won the fight, by the way. And so I can see where you can make that little that mistake. That mistake. You thought it was pro wrestling.
Yeah, I thought it was pro wrestling because I'm from Memphis, and pro wrestling is really big there. And I got an older brother that he's like 6-7 years older than me. He still thinks it's real. You know what I'm saying? So growing up, that's what was in the house. And me and my little brother, we used to be tag team partners, and we used to practice our moves on our big sister. We was called the Cheetah Boys because we used to always cheat. we was always cheat to win. We would tag team partners, and we would double team and do whatever it takes to win. So when I turned 17, we moved to a different part of Memphis, and my school had wrestling. I'm like, what? The school got pro wrestling? Wow! And I went to go try out, and they wasn't doing no pro wrestling moves.
Oh, well, I'm sorry that didn't work out for you. You didn't do any pro wrestling. Yeah. Now, before you did wrestling, did you do any other sports like football, basketball, baseball, anything else? Or was it just, wrestling throughout your whole entire, high school, middle school?
Well, when I was in junior high school, I tried out for the football team, and my teammates kept jumping me because I kind of grew up in the hood, and right across the street from my school was a real bad area. It was like the projects, and those guys, man, they was just no good, and one thing led to another, and they just kept jumping me every day. It started off 2 guys, then 3 guys, then 4 guys. Then one day they brought their uncle, and he had guns. I was like, the coach wasn't helping me out. They started hitting me in the head with helmets in the locker room. I was like, man, football ain't that important. So I never did sports, and I was like a problem child. And wrestling actually changed my life. Before I changed my life around, I was 17 years old in the 9th grade, and I started wrestling. And then next thing you know, I started making the honor roll in school because you got to keep your grades up. And wrestling, I just fell in love with it. And my first year of wrestling, I didn't start anything, but my coach gave me a couple of matches, and I lost 5 matches in a row. And my little brother gave me the chain, and then after that, I went undefeated all the way up to regional finals, where I wrestled this one guy that I already beat twice. And since I came out of nowhere, they wanted him to win the regionals. So needless to say, they gave him a bunch of points and then called points and stuff for me, which was kind of devastating because I was undefeated. You know how they go, and I went to state, and I placed 6th in state my first year starting, and it was a big accomplishment for me. But that year I had the state champion pent. I hit him with a powerbomb, but I dropped to my knees first, and I stacked him, and I had him pent, and the referee didn't call it. I think if I would have pent that state champion, I think I would have won state my first year starting.
Wow, I mean, that's a huge accomplishment for you starting wrestling at that time, and you make it all the way to the state, and you didn't do any other sports prior to that. I mean, you got beat up by the uncle and all the boys around the hood on the football team.
I didn't get beat up. I held my own. That's why they kept bringing them up. Yeah, bro. I was always.
So you beat all of them up then?
Bro, I always been a scrapper. A scrapper. I'm not saying I just got beat up. They probably got.
You held your own. You held your own.
Bro, no cap. I held my own because the 2 guys, I fucked them up. I'm not gonna lie. The 2 guys, I beat them up. 3 guys, I beat them up. But when it was 4, I still held my own. But it was so bad that they had to come back with guns the next day. I held my own. I grew up fighting in the street because I hated bullies, right? But people wouldn't fight me on one-on-one. So I was good at fighting 2 and 3 people. It didn't bother me.
Gotcha. Okay. So you went into wrestling. After you got done graduating from high school, you go into, did you go to college to wrestle, or did you go straight into mixed martial arts?
Yeah, I actually didn't graduate from high school. I never graduated because like I said, I was 17 years old in the 9th grade, and I started wrestling, and I started actually paying attention in school. And so I went to summer school that year, and I skipped the 10th grade. I went to the 11th grade, and that's when I started. And then that summer I turned 18. And in Tennessee, you can't do sports in high school after you turn 18. And so I went to some school, and then I started doing wrestling in the summer, like freestyle. I had never done freestyle before, and I got recruited by these college coaches. And this coach from Lassen College saw me, and I did a big power bomb at that freestyle tournament. I posted it on my Instagram. It's a crazy power bomb because remember I told you I thought it was pro wrestling, so I used to do pro wrestling moves and wrestling, especially freestyle. When I heard you can slam and you had to drop to your knees, and the coach saw me and he recruited me to go to Lassen Junior College in Northern California. So I didn't go back to high school. I didn't go back to finish my senior year. I just went straight to junior college.
What's going on, guys? This video is sponsored by G Fuel. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we all know G Fuel has amazing flavors for the energy formula. We're getting your caffeine along with the multivitamin, but now G Fuel has come out a brand new product. Boom! G Fuel Energy Plus Protein, caffeine and protein. You're gonna get 15 grams of whey protein along with 140 milligrams of caffeine. It's a perfect combination to take before you go to the gym. I enjoy taking protein and caffeine before I go to the gym. Caffeine is a great energy source. It's natural, and along with the protein, it's gonna help supplement your muscles and replenish the muscles and when you break them down. So if you want to give G Fuel the brand new Energy Plus Protein a try, all you got to do is go to gfuel.com, and when you do that, make sure you use my promo code MIGHTY. That'll help you save 20% on your complete order. They have some delicious flavors. They got cafe mocha, French vanilla latte, and they also have chocolate. If you guys out there and you love your caffeine and you love your damn coffee, look no further. Get the Energy Plus Protein G Fuel, brand new product. Don't wait. Go to gfuel.com. Promo code MIGHTY. Back to the content. I feel like even in your professional mixed martial arts career, I feel like you probably thought that was pro wrestling too, huh?
Oh yeah. I've always been a pro wrestler at heart.
So let's just jump right to it. So pro wrestling, what's your favorite era of pro wrestling? Have you been keeping up with pro wrestling right now? Like with the Bloodlines, Roman Reigns, you have Cody Rhodes, what's your favorite era of wrestling?
I guess back in the WWF days, I used to be a big Ultimate Warrior fan, and Hulk Hogan and Macho Man Randy Savage, Junkyard Dog, the Moon Dogs, and back when when wrestling was real, it was really different back in the days before they had all the female wrestlers, which is good. They got the women wrestler, but this was before all that. Before it was and those were the best. That was the best for me, because back then they had the cartoon, they had the little rubber figures, the toys and stuff like that. So that was my era of pro wrestling. But once I started training MMA and started, doing that, I didn't watch pro wrestling no more, because I kind of knew what it was about. Like that stuff is fake, and what I'm doing is real. So I didn't watch pro wrestling no more.
Gotcha. Because I feel like you love it so much because you've been doing it since obviously when you're a kid, and then when you have the opportunity to do mixed martial arts, I'm shocked you didn't pursue a career in wrestling, right? Because I think you're powerbombing people, and I feel like you have the right charisma to be able to be a good wrestler, a good following. So why didn't you just try to do more wrestling instead of mixed martial arts?
Well, you know what the thing is, mixed martial arts, I kind of fell into it. It wasn't even really my plan to go into mixed martial arts, but years go by. I went to the UFC, then I left the UFC when they stole my Reebok deal, but that's a different thing. And then I went to Bellator.
We'll get to that soon.
I had to throw that in. I had to throw that in there. And I always, anytime I get a chance to throw that in there, I throw that out there. And I went to Bellator, and I signed a deal with Paramount. A lot of people probably don't know this, but my deal wasn't just with Bellator, it was with Paramount, and they wanted a fighter that can act to do movies. They promised me movies, reality show, pro wrestling, and fights. And so I signed a deal with them, and they signed me up to TNA, and they were supposed to train me to be a pro wrestler and all this stuff, but they dropped the ball. They never trained me, and I was on the main event Mafia, and stuff like that, but they really didn't use me and stuff like that. And the whoever the head honcho was, or there's some lady, I can't remember her name now, she just dropped the ball, so it never really happened for me.
Gotcha. Okay, let's go back to the beginning. So I feel like you made your pro debut. That was King of the Cage, correct?
Correct.
King of the Cage. Okay, King of the Cage, you go out there, you win that one. And then I feel like you made your biggest name, where you built the most eyeballs, was when you were in Pride, right?
Yeah.
Like, Pride is probably, till this day, one of my favorite things I grew up watching. If it wasn't for Pride, I don't think I would have ever found The Ultimate Fighter, because when I was coming home from college, I was watching Mirko Cro Cop, Josh Barnett, Vanderlei Silva, Mercy Suga and Hua. I was watching Yo Black Ass, which your motherfucker. I was watching you. Like, tell me about your Pride days when you were fighting over in Japan.
What you want to know? I'll tell you anything you want to know about Pride. What you want to know?
How are the girls?
Oh my God! In Japan, in MMA, as a fighter, you got groupies. I don't think even still today, MMA is at its height in America. I don't think you get groupies like
you get dudes. You don't get chick groupies.
No,
you get dude
dudes.
groupies here in America.
Yeah.
So you're saying in Japan you get chick groupies.
Oh yeah, here in America you get dudes want to buy you drinks and ask you for your phone number so they can be your friend and want to train with you. In Japan, bro, in Japan after the fight you get girls trying to give you their phone number, girls waiting for you in the hotels and stuff like that. It was fun. I love Japan, but not only because of that. You know what I'm saying? Because
of course, that was a little funny joke. Like, how was the experience going over there? And obviously it's in a ring, right? That's something different that a lot of people don't see nowadays. Unless you're watching one championship, fighting in the ring. You also were part of those tournaments, which you don't never see tournament. I think the last tournament we saw in mixed martial arts was the last one I was in, which is the World Grand Prix. But like, walk me through like your experience in fighting in Pride, which is not around anymore.
I'm gonna tell you about my first experience. The first time I go there to fight, it was a short notice fight with Sakuraba, and I had gotten in trouble in college. I got in a fight, self-defense, but I got in trouble. The guy went to jail. I mean, the guy went to hospital. I went to jail. So I wasn't supposed to leave the country, but I didn't give a fuck because I'm about to go fight and make some money. So I go to the airport, give my ticket, about to get on the plane. Boom, airport police arrest me. Somebody snitched on me. That's a whole different story. And so they bail me out of jail, and I go to Japan. And by the time I get to Japan, I'm already a star. Mind you, I've never fought past King of the Cage at this time. I'm already a star. Japanese fans already got laminated, plastic-covered, thick trading cards of me from my pictures from King of the Cage and asking me for my autograph. I've never even fought there. I'm just getting to the hotel off the thing. So when I went to jail and I got bailed out, Pride ran this story in the newspaper. This bad boy is coming over to fight Sakuraba, and Sakuraba was the biggest star in Japan and fighting at this time. So they got this bad boy out of jail to come in just to fight Sakuraba. So the fans went crazy, and I get to the arena, the Saitama Super Arena, and they got me in this big jail cell, me and Sakuraba, and they lowered us from the ceiling all the way down, and that was my introduction to the Japanese fans, and I fought Sakuraba. I put on a great fight with considering only 2 weeks notice, and still jet lag from getting out of jail like 2 nights before, and I put on a great show, just tossing him around, slamming him and stuff like that. I ended up losing the fight by submission, but the Japanese fans loved me, and I had one of the most welcoming, saying applauses and stuff from the fans walking back to the locker room. I just lost. I was, I was disappointed in myself because I hadn't lost in a while. At that time, I think I had only lost one fight at that time to Marvin Eastman. So this was my second time losing, and it's always hard when you lose a fight and stuff like that. And I really thought that I could beat the guy, but I forgot all about that because how the fans were, how they liked me. And from that moment on, I fell in love with Japan. I fell in love with the fans and the culture that was very welcoming. And I smashed the hottest Japanese chick ever. And I mean,
you had to give her some of that BBC.
If I had one, I would have gave it to her.
I love each time we're hanging out, we're like BBC. Bear's like, what does that mean? What does that mean?
It's a news station. Don't you watch the news?
Right?
Yeah. One of my girls heard me talking about BBC, and she was like, "Yeah, that's news to me." I'm glad you got that joke. I'm glad you got that joke.
I got it. Okay, so I remember like back in Pride, they paid the athletes in cash, right? Can you confirm that? Like, obviously, if for the viewers, anybody out there, when you travel, you only can carry $10,000 in and out of the country. Anything over $10,000, you have to claim it, right? So when you fight in Pride, I'm sure you get paid more than $10,000. Like, were they paying you guys in cash?
Yeah, they were paying us in cash, and back in those days, back in my day, you going through the airport, it was easier to travel with that type of cash. And I don't want to get myself in trouble, but I did claim taxes. I did claim my taxes, but to get it in the country, I had to get creative, and so I would give. You have like 4 cornermen, so you would keep some on you, and you would dish out 9,000 to all your cornermen. But my thing was, those camouflage pants that I walked out in, they had big cargo pockets on them, so I always wore those back on the airport. And being a black guy, you can get away with a lot of stuff. They never suspected me to be carrying a bunch of cash on me. So
look at this broke motherfucker walk through here. I was surprised you could afford a goddamn ticket.
Yeah. They never suspected me to be having that much cash. So it was always cool.
Gotcha. Okay. Now you had some amazing fights in Pride. You had the fight with I think the most notable ones with Vanderlei Silva, the Ricardo Rona, when you picked him up and slammed him. How did your back then hurt when you did that? Like when you picked him up and slammed him, like your back didn't give out? Oh, obviously your back didn't give out, but the sheer power you had to pick him up and powerbomb him. When you did that, like where you're like, oh, well, if I'm going out, I'm taking your ass with me. Come on.
Bro, this is the thing. I've always done that move in the gym and stuff, but I never like slammed my sparring partners. But that was my first time ever whipping somebody up like that. And that fight, that was my first time ever losing my temper in a fight. And I always believe whenever I lost my temper, I had like unlimited strength. And he felt like a paperweight. I lost my temper against Ricardo Arona because he had done a few things to me. Being out there, and the straw that broke the camel's back was when he was heel kicking me in the face, and I went down to cover up, and he told the referee that I was knocked out. And the Pride referees, in a little backstory, they didn't like me that much. That's why they used to always give me yellow cards, because a yellow card it took a point away, but it also took 10% of your purse.
Yep.
And every time I got a yellow card, that's 10% of my purse gone. And they really took 10% of your damn purse. There's only one time they gave me a yellow card and they didn't take 10% of my purse is when I fought Kevin Randleman, because I disputed. I was like, I wasn't the one stalling here. So
yeah,
I was really mad at Ricardo Arona. So I just felt like I had unlimited strength, and I wasn't trying to kill him, but I was just trying to slam. I was trying to slam him through the mat. I was, and I think that's why a lot of fans thought that I was on steroids, because a lot of people back in Pride was on steroids, but I never used. But people couldn't understand why I was so strong. But my lower back and my legs are really strong, and I'm just naturally strong individual because my dad is built. It's genetics. My dad's built. My dad's strong, and I've been working construction since I was 5 years old. I've just been really strong, and Ricardo Arona felt like a paperweight that day. Damn.
Well, if you guys have not seen the Rampage Slam against Ricardo Arona, do yourself a favor, go on YouTube and look it up. It's absolutely amazing. I loved it when you fought in Pride. Okay, you had your time in Pride. Then you finally make your way to the UFC. Your first debut fights against Marvin Eastman. You get your revenge back, and then you work your way up. You become the UFC light heavyweight champion of the world. I know you left the time at the UFC. We could talk about the Reebok deal, how they took that money away from you. They took Xbox away from me, even though Xbox wasn't paying me. But tell me, what was like getting to UFC, revenging your one of your losses, becoming the champion, and that was the first time. And then you actually, a lot of people don't know this. Back in the day when you left Pride, when you fought, you unified the belts. You fought Dan Henderson to unify the belts. It was the Pride champion and the UFC champion fighting, and you unified the belts. Walk me through like your time in the UFC when you became champion, fighting and unifying the belts.
Okay, so I left Pride as well. Pride and we didn't see eye to eye, so I left Pride, and my manager at the time, he became the promoter of a show, WFA, and he couldn't manage me anymore, so he became the promoter. And so he signed me to WFA. Unfortunately, they only had one show, but they gave me a sick contract. And the UFC bought the whole organization just to get my contract, so wow. I can fight Chuck Liddell, because that was the time when Chuck Liddell was avenging all his losses. And I was the last one. I was the last one on his list, the last guy to beat him that he didn't come back and defeat. And so I had that one fight with Marvin Eastman. They bought my contract. I said, look, I always stayed away from UFC because, you know what I'm saying, my teammate, my buddy Tito was champion. I didn't want to come over there. Yep. And, you know, I knew they was going to try to put me against him. And I was like, since you guys brought my contract, you know, I got no say. But if you want me to, you know what I'm saying, be like on the same team with you guys, let me avenge my first loss, Marvin Eastman. And that was my first fight. And so I beat Marvin Eastman. And then they asked me, do you think you can, you know, beat Chuck and get the belt? And I said no, because I knew if they thought that if I was like, yeah, come on, give me Chuck to be a champion, they probably wouldn't have gave me that fight. And I knew I could beat Chuck at that time. But the MMA world, they thought that I was finished because I had recently lost a fight to Shogun, and they had no reason, they had no idea why I lost that fight. I know why I lost that fight to Shogun. I went to that fight injured, and they just thought that I was finished. And so the MMA world,
it was a rib injury, right?
No, the rib is what he did in the fight. You know, my ankle was I had hurt my ankle sparring, so I couldn't really properly train and spar for the last 4 weeks of the training camp. I could barely walk, you know, and so I still trained, but my cardio was done, and it got in my head like, look, this round is 10 minutes, so let me start off slow, and Ninja just jumped on me and just wrecked me and crashed me. And so I was like, you know, I should have backed out of the fight, but, you know, I don't pull out. That's why I got 5 kids. I got a problem pulling out. You know what I'm saying? I just don't, my pull-out game is weak. Up to this day, I only pulled out in one fight. So I beat Chuck Liddell, got the belt, and then the UFC wanted me to unify the belts with Dan Henderson. So I'm actually the first ever unified champion in MMA, but for some reason, they wanted to give that accolade to Anderson Silva. They said Anderson Silva was the first one, but I actually fought Dan Henderson for the Pride belt as a UFC champion before Anderson Silva did it. Then he did it after me, but they never gave me the accolades of me being the first unified MMA champion. I don't understand why. I don't know why they like Anderson Silva over me. To this day, I have no idea why they had a problem. I don't know why. I don't know why.
Well, you know, I remember when that happened, because I followed Pride and I also followed the UFC, and then I followed your career in Pride, and when you came to UFC, knocking out Chuck Liddell, and then I remember that was a big thing, is like you fighting Dan Henderson to unify the belts of the Pride belt and the UFC belt, because I believe this is right when the UFC purchased Pride, right? So
right.
Am I right on that point?
Right. Yeah, they purchased Pride right around that time. They purchased Pride,
and at the time, Dan Henderson was the champion, because Dan Henderson knocked out Vanderlei Silva here in America, so he was a champion. So you had the Pride. Yeah, he had 2 belts. So you had the Pride champion facing the UFC champion at the time, which was it was Rampage Jackson. And then when you guys spot, that unified, because they basically absorbed the Pride. And a lot of people don't realize that, right? And so I remember when that happened, I was like, oh my God, Rampage about to fight Dan Henderson, 2 champions going head to head. It was very rare at that time where you had one organization and another organization one organization buying the other one, and the champions actually fighting each other. So you are the first athlete to unify the belts of 2 organizations at the highest level.
Right, because back in those days, if you was Pride champion, you was number 1. If you was UFC champion, you was number 2. You remember that?
Yep. Because they're like, well, those guys fight for 10 minutes, and it's way more. You can the rules were more. They were harder because you couldn't elbow in Pride, because the Japanese thought that if you were to elbow, and I agree with them, when you elbow somebody, it's a cutting mechanism. It's a cutting. It's a cutting tool, right? You cut above the eyelids, the blood drips in the eyes, and the person becomes disarmed, or you can disarm them because they can't see. In the UFC, you can elbow. You don't need much space to elbow. It's like boom. There's no technique. There's technique to it, but not really. Now stomping a grounded opponent. People don't realize it's actually really hard to jump on somebody and stomp their face in. Like, it's extremely hard. But in the UFC, you couldn't do that. So people always put Pride up on the pedestal, saying that's number 1, and the UFC was 2, because those 10-minute rounds, those are fucking gangster rounds. A lot of shit happens in 10 minutes. Like 10-5-5, that's a long fight for championship.
Yeah, that was a long time, and it was harder for wrestlers to fight in Pride because if you didn't take your shot right and you got down, you was expecting knees on top of your head, and that was ugly. So when I fought Dan Henderson, and if you think about it, I think Dan Henderson was the first double champ in MMA because he had the 205 belt and the 85 or 89, whatever.
I think it was. I remember. Yeah, he was double weight champ. Yeah. He was double champ because when I think back on it, I lost before. Yeah, so you are right. He was a double champ because nobody in Pride ever did it too. And there's actually a picture of him holding both the Pride belts. I had the producer look that up and put it on. See, that's the thing, right? Like people don't realize like the double champ has already been done. Yeah. Right. Champ versus champ has already been done. Organization like Bellator versus PFL. You have the Bellator champ taking on a PFL champ. It's already been done. Right, it was Rampage Jackson versus Dan Henderson.
But it's always good to see. Yeah, I would like to see the Bellator champions go against the UFC champions, the PFL champions go against the UFC champions. I would like to see that, and Risen. I would like to see the Risen champions go against the Bellator. I like to see that, and I don't understand why MMA is so afraid to do that. They think maybe they'll lose market share or whatever. Who cares about that? At the end of the day, I think the fans deserve to see like the champs go against each other sometimes.
Well, I agree with you. I'd love to see it too. We'll see how like a one championship athlete can champion fight against, UFC champion. And I think we all know why. It's because, like you said, it's the market share. You have so many people in the pot. You have, ESPN Plus that runs all of the UFC. You have Amazon Prime that runs one championship. You have, ESPN that runs Bellator and PFL. So I think, I want you, if you want to watch Jon Jones fight, you got to watch ESPN Plus. You don't watch, Jonathan Haggerty fight, you got to watch Amazon Prime. If you want to watch, this person fight in PFL, you got to watch, on ESPN Plus. So I think they want to keep their athletes to themselves, and I think it's more of a business move. But, I felt like back in the day when, because people were going all over the place to fight. Right? This is before the UFC absorbed, Strikeforce and Pride. Like you could fight in Pride for 2 fights. Next, you're fighting in Strikeforce for 2 fights. Then you're going to fight in FXC or whatever made for 2 fights. You can go wherever you want and make all the money. Now it's kind of, you're an athlete, you're locked down that promotion for 5 to 6 fights. And then if you become a free agent, if you got a big name, then you can go to, the other organization, right?
Yeah,
and then
I never like to sign like big multi-fight contracts. I always like to sign like 3 fights at a time. I never like to sign 5 and 6 fights. I would never do that.
Yeah. Well, I never forget when we fought on a couple cards, and there was one card we were fighting on. You were so pissed off at the UFC. We're at the press conference. You were playing your fucking PS Vita the whole entire time. Your PSP or PS Vita. You were just sitting there like, I ain't talking to nobody. So you said earlier in the show, Reebok took your sponsors. Now I'm gonna go on and say that.
No, UFC took my deal, my Reebok deal from me.
Okay, so they took your Reebok deal when they signed with Reebok, or they just take it and then they went behind your back and took and brought Reebok onto the UFC and put Reebok on you.
So I was with Reebok and they wanted to sponsor me, and I was doing commercials for them and doing, they gave me like a shoe, like an off-road shoe, and we was finna do a whole big ordeal, and they wanted to be on my shorts and stuff for the UFC, and Dana White was like, you can't be sponsored by Reebok. We don't have a relationship with Reebok. I was like, you don't got a relationship with my other sponsors either. One of my sponsors I was sponsored by Boost Mobile, and Boost Mobile came over to the UFC from me, and I was like, look, you guys are already in business with one of my sponsors. Like, chill out. You know what I'm saying? This ain't got nothing to do with you. You know what I'm saying? I'm an independent contractor. You guys can't tell me what I can and can't have on my shorts. And Reebok was liking that they was getting more press by not being able to be on my shorts than they think they would have gotten just by being on my shorts in the fight and stuff like that. So they teamed up. Reebok didn't do the deal with me. Next thing you know, the whole UFC is sponsored by Reebok.
You're like, you motherfuckers.
Yeah, and I didn't get not like 1 cent. Like, I believe, I'm the type of guy, I believe in karma because, if you know me, if you ever done business with me, you know that I've never done a shady deal before in my life. Maybe some deals don't work out, but it don't work out for the both of us. You know what I'm saying? And I believe in karma. And I was watching that Reebok deal play out, and it seems like it wasn't a good deal because Reebok's not there anymore.
Yeah. Well, obviously for me being a flyweight at the time, I felt Reebok, you know, a lot of fighters were like, yeah, you crazy DJ. But I felt like Reebok was good for me. And the reason why I say that is because Grant, I had Xbox, and we talked about Xbox sponsor, how sometimes the only time I'll get paid from Xbox was when they had like a big activation, like Tomb Raider, that one, and then Call of Duty. Those were the only two I felt like I got paid from, but I would always wear it. But then once Reebok came into play, like if you're a champion, you get 40K right up front. You don't have to go chase nobody. You ain't got to go chase the money. It's 40K right into your bank account. For me as a flyweight, you know how hard it is to sell flyweight like sponsorship. It's so hard. Granted, I didn't have a management team. It was just Matt Hume and me, and that was it. Right? I didn't want Matt Hume going out and looking for sponsors and fighting. I wanted us just to focus on training for our fights and defending the title as much as possible. So when Reebok came to us and they're like, hey, you're the champion, you get 40 G's, don't worry about anything, I was like, bet. But then I also felt bad for guys like you, Brandon Schaub, who was getting 6 figures as a sponsorship. You guys couldn't do that because Reebok took priority, right? So I think they could have done it a lot better, where it's like, hey, you know what, like, guys, Reebok is the foundation of the shorts. If you could prove to us that you legitimately have like a legit sponsor that will come in and sponsor you guys more, we'll throw that on top of the Reebok so you guys can make more money instead of shedding out. Because I know guys like you, Brandon, I'm sure you know, John Jones, I remember he had Gatorade, Nike. A lot of people can get more sponsors. But I think for the flyweights, I think I would be shocked to hear of a flyweight in my time era, even today's time era, if they can make $40,000 on sponsorships on their shorts. A flyweight, not saying you.
Yeah. Yeah. So think about this. Think about it. The NBA or the NFL came to their teams or and said like, oh, you guys got to wear Reebok, or you got to wear just only Nike, and you can't get other sponsors. You know, a lot of athletes, like top athletes, they make more money off endorsements than they do off playing the sport that they love. So yeah, I thought that was unfair, and like we're independent contractors. It was wrong. They can't do that. They can't tell you what uniform and stuff to wear. And that was my whole thing with them. And I think that's one of the things that started the bad blood. But I've done other things that piss off the UFC and stuff too as well. So.
Oh fuck! You broke the door. You fought Rashaad Evans. I mean, your
like
time in UFC.
Shit.
I mean, your time in UFC was amazing. Like I mean, I know there's always bad times, but the fights you've had in the UFC, the Ultimate Fighter you did as well, that was a treat to watch, just to see your temper go up, and then you try to coach the younger athletes, and then you just had Rashaad Evans on the podcast, the Jackson podcast. How was it catching up with him?
You know what? It was good catching up with him because Rashaad is actually he's actually fun. He's actually a good guy. I just didn't like him back in the day. I didn't like him. But the director of A-Team, Joe Carnahan, he did another movie called Boss Level, and he had the bright idea to make Rashaad and I German twins. So he put us in the movie together because he's a big fan of MMA. He knew about the bad blood, and he liked Rashaad too. So he was cool with Rashaad. So he put us in the movie together, and we on set. At first, it was kind of tough, but I thought, wow, we became cool, and we've been boys ever since. But we still have that. I feel like I have like unfinished business with him. So on the podcast, he said that he's down to fight me in a boxing match. I don't think he want no more MMA because he knew I was going to put my foot in his ass in MMA. He just got lucky and beat me. So he think he can outbox me. So I hopefully one day that'll happen.
Well, I mean, I'll love to see it. I mean, you two running it back again in a boxing match. Sign me up. Sign my black ass up. Okay, so then you leave.
Let's get you to box. Let's get you to box somebody. What's up with that?
Now we already gone through this, dog. We talked about this on camera. We gotta wait. I'm busy, building my brand. Now let's talk. Right. You leave the UFC. You go to Bellator. Right? You go to Bellator, and you have a career at Bellator. And correct me if I'm wrong. Bellator was your last. Like you left You went to UFC. You left the UFC. Then you came back to UFC. Correct?
Oh yeah, that's right. I think I was like one of the only fighters to be under contract with Bellator and UFC at the same time. I forgot. Yeah, I did.
It was very weird. It was like
it was weird because it was weird. I can't remember exactly what happened, but when I left the UFC because they took my Reebok deal, but this is before the Reebok deal went into play. But I think I owed them one more fight on contract or something,
Yes.
or I was going to get sued or something. But I had to buy myself out of that UFC contract. I think it cost like $1.7 million or something. I can't remember what it cost me to buy myself out of that. I can't remember, but it was a big
you
number
making that
like
kind of money,
bro. I was getting paid, bro. I was getting paid. I've never been the type of guy that talks about money because I really don't care about money. I don't love money, but bro, I was getting paid. Hey, bro, come on, man. I put butts in seats, bro. You know they got.
I wish I was getting $1.7 million check when I was throwing motherfuckers in the air armbar. I'm telling you that right now.
I didn't say I was getting $1.7 million checks.
Okay, yeah.
No, with pay-per-view, yeah, I was doing. I'm not gonna sit here and lie, but with pay-per-view, yeah, I was smashing it. But with Bellator, I can tell you this: Bellator paid me purse-wise on the purse. They paid me more than the UFC paid me, though.
Wow. See, I always tell people there's money. Everybody's like, oh man, you got to be in the UFC. That's where all the money is. I'm like, dude, there's people who make more money outside of the UFC in other organizations, right? Like UFC has that prestige, right? You look at Kayla Harrison, she just left PFL to fight in the UFC because she's done everything in PFL. She's won the tournament. She's been the champion. Now she's in the UFC and she becomes a UFC women's champion. Boom, her legacy is set, right? You unify the belts in UFC and Pride. Boom. Now you got the big checks. Boom, your legacy is pretty much set. Now whatever you do is for fun. Right.
But I'm gonna tell you, but I'm gonna tell you this though. To be honest though, I don't think I would have got those big purse paydays in Bellator if I wasn't in the UFC. And mind you, in the UFC, I got a big purse. I had a big purse, but then I also had pay-per-view dollars.
Yes.
When I went to Bellator, they didn't do pay-per-view, so that's why I had to get a huge guarantee, a huge purse. And me, when I do my contracts, I win or lose, I get the same money. I never did this to show I get this, and if I win, I get that. I never did those contracts. You know, as soon as I got to a level to where I had negotiating power, I was like, no, I'm not doing this. If I lose, I get half or something. No, I didn't do that shit. I said, people come down and watch me fight, whether I win or lose, I'm gonna get paid.
Yeah. Well, you're one of the anomalies of the sport, right? When I first started fighting, I mean, I believe when we both started fighting, we were like, you win, your show, you win, right? And then when we both get to a certain point in our career, we start making, we're winning. People are coming to see us or buying a pay-per-view or whatnot. Not me as much, but probably for you. You can start asking for, no, this is my guarantee whether I win or I lose, right? Where a lot of people, they're not in the same boat. They're not in that same situation where they got to work their way up the ranks to be able to make to get to the point, the opportunity to have that in their contract. Where a lot of people,
disrespectful, bro. I don't care what level and stuff you are, but you think about this. I think it's disrespectful. Like we're coming to fight.
Oh, absolutely. I agree.
You should get paid. You should get paid the same whether you win or lose. Like I think that's disrespectful to the fighters and it's unfair. You know what I'm saying? Like I think it should be one
straight up.
One purse.
Yeah, straight up.
Yeah.
It's not like you work a 40-hour week job and you show up and you flip all these burgers and next thing you know, they're like, oh, we're going to give you, 30 hours worth of your check instead of 40. It's like, no, I showed up for 40 hours. You're going to pay my motherfucking 40-hour week check. Same thing with fighting. I agree with you. There should not be a show win. There is no such thing as an incentive. The incentive of winning is you win a fucking. I have never met somebody to this day who's ever stepped in a cage or a ring or on a jiu-jitsu match on a mat just to show up and lose, right? I've never met a person.
I'm gonna have to correct you. I just thought about it. I understand. I do kind of understand it because there are people with all due respect. We both know this guy. And I love him, and he keep it real about it. Bob Sapp.
Oh.
Sometimes he'd be like, fuck it, I'm not training. I don't give a fuck. Just give me my money. So Yeah, if a guy does that, if a guy's go out there and flop, then it should be in the contract. Look, if you go out there and you just lay down, you just flop, you know, as soon as the bell ring, you ain't getting that fucking money. So I forgot about that part. Yeah,
exactly. I agree with you. Right. So there are some rare cases. I've been corrected, but if everyone who stepped in a competition, football, NFL, NBA, nobody ever steps into the competition ready to lose. Everybody wants to win. And you think about it, back in the day, when you lose 2 fights, you're getting your walking papers, right? So that was an incentive to fucking win. Right. And so you don't get fired.
Yeah,
right?
You're right. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
There was no, I mean, I don't see why, we give you half your check, and then if you fight really good, if you win, we give you the other half. It's like, why? It's like, I'm here to fight, right? So I agree with you. Like, it is disrespectful where it's like, dude, there's no reason. I fucking made it here. Now you're trying to, it's like, I've proven I want to be here. I want to be the champion, but you're still going to make me work for the other half of my check. So I agree with you. So I agree. If we get to a point in our career, well, me and you both have got to a point in our career where we can just say, this is what I want. It is what it is. And don't get me wrong. Like guys like Sergio Pettis, he left the UFC. Now I've heard he's making more money in Bellator and all that stuff. I left the UFC. I'm making more. I am making more money with one championship. There are those things, and I agree with you. If I never had built my name and did 11 consecutive title defenses in the UFC, and then be able to build my brand there and go to Asia or go somewhere else, I probably wouldn't make as much money. But since I did have that initial kind of boost in America, it kind of helped my case, and for you, help your case with Bellator with the pay-per-view points and all that stuff. So I agree with you on all fronts.
Yeah, I've been wanting to ask you about one championship. First of all, I got to say, I think that was the worst trade ever in the sport of MMA. What's that dude name?
Ben Askren.
He was on that. Ben Askren. That was the worst trade ever. You know, I know you was like what, 125 weight class.
Yeah, 125 flyweight.
Yeah, a flyweight. So I know that's like a small weight class and blah 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 and all that, whatever they were saying. But you are an exciting fighter, and you know what I'm saying, one of the greatest champions that ever, you know what I'm saying, step foot in the cage. You know, you can't deny that. So I just think that the UFC, you know, in my opinion, if I was a promoter, I would just kept rocking with you. But you did great. You went over to one championship. What's up with them? Are they paying? I would like. Do they got heavyweights? I want to go over there and try. I'm a free agent. I want to go over there and do something before I get too old. What's up? What's up with one championship? They like black folks.
I'll talk to Chatri for you, okay? I'll say, I'll say Chatri, Rashaad Evans and Rampage Jackson will do a boxing match. What do you think? And one championship's amazing, man. Like, I love them. Yeah. Like, they gave me the opportunity, and they believe in my skill set and my brand, and I was able to go over there and fight in a World Grand Prix, which is something I've always wanted to do in beginning of my career, because I grew up watching you fight in a World Grand Prix in Pride. And for me to be able to do that in one championship, it was amazing. And then I got the opportunity to fight Rod Tang. That was also a thing.
That was a sick fight, yeah.
That was also something I couldn't do if I stayed with the UFC. So when I left the UFC, it was probably like the best thing for me, because I got to do other things, right? Like I looked at my scale. It's like, okay, I just lost to Henry Cejudo, but a lot of people thought I won. And then if I were to go back and fight Henry again for the third time, if I beat him, I'm still stuck with the company that was at the time talking about getting rid of the flyweights, right? And then who was I going to fight after that? There was nobody after Henry Cejudo. Like, I beat the bricks off Henry Cejudo. He works his way back up the fucking ranks, and then it's like, okay, who am I going to fight after that? So that was that situation. If I was to lose to Henry for the second time, this is the third fight, then it's okay, I'm stuck where I'm at right now. So I was like, I think I'm going to take a leap of faith and see what I can do outside of the UFC. And it was the best decision I ever made. And it was probably the best decision the UFC probably made, because if they never made that trade, you never have Jorge Masvidal, you never have Leon Edwards, you never have Kamaru Usman. You don't have those big, monumental things that happen in the UFC. And I'm gonna have Ben Askren on a podcast to talk to him about, like, hey, where were you at when they approached you about that trade? What'd you think about it? So it'll be interesting. But hey, I appreciate that love, baby. I appreciate that love, Rampage. I really do.
It's real. Yeah, it's real though. Like, and it's just like you don't get many champions to have I've never seen anybody with as many UFC belts as you. Tell me another champion that got as many belts as you. I don't know. So, but I'm not like a person that follows the UFC a whole lot and everything. So when I saw that, I was like, well, what the fuck is the UFC thinking? So listen, with all due respect, the homeboy was boring.
Who, Ben Askren?
Yeah, he was a boring. With all due respect, I like him since I had him on the show and stuff. I got to know him, and I like him. He's a great guy. But his fighting style, he's a wrestler. I'm a wrestler, but his fighting style was boring to me. So I was like, I don't know what they're doing. With all due respect.
Like I said, when the trade happened, one championship, they got a workhorse. I've always shown up. I've always put on great fights. And I think for them, they got the opportunity to see what Ben Askren could do in the UFC, even though he was at the tail end of his career. So the trade happened. I'm happy. I think Ben Askren is happy about it. And I think every organization on each side are happy. I think the fans might be a little bit pissed off about it. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. Yeah. Now, you're all done. You're not officially retired, but you're just living your best life at the Jackson house. What do you got? Do you got anything coming up right now? I know you're out there with Bear, Luke Rocco, Cheeto Vera. You guys are building something special. Like, what do you got going on right now?
Right now I'm training for this my first ever Japanese pro wrestling match in Josh Bloodsport's Bushido, June 22nd in Japan.
Are you bullshitting right now? Are you serious?
No, I'm serious.
Oh, that's what's up. That's what's up.
Yeah. I'm fighting this Japanese guy. Josh told me he's 280. His name is Shrek. So I'm gonna go fuck this Japanese guy up real quick. I'm gonna fuck his world up. I'm gonna fuck you up, Shrek. I'm gonna fuck you up, son.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. I'm excited to get. Yes. I'm excited to get back in Japan and entertain the fans.
And and when is this match? June 22nd, you said?
Yeah, June 22nd. It's gonna be on Fight TV on Triller.
Okay. So, now is this June 22nd Asia time or June 22nd? So they're a day ahead of us. So the 21st or 23rd.
It's still they're a day ahead of us, but the way it works out, it'll still be the 22nd for us. It'll just be a different time. So
okay.
It's crazy. It's so hard to imagine this. So when you go there, you lose a day. When you come back home, you gain a day. So it's so weird, but if it's the 22nd here, it's the 22nd there, but it's just 14. It's like 14
hour
hours.
difference.
Yeah, 14 hours.
Depending on if it's nighttime there, I agree with you. So I'm like, I just want to make sure I have it down correctly because I might try to watch that shit. Because I never forget, you were just recently in Thailand with Bob Sapp, and I'm going through Instagram, and I see you and his black ass in one shirt beating up people. I'm like, what the fuck is Rampage doing?
Bro, that was so fun. I'm just like having fun, but I wanted to do a boxing match before I got too old, and me and Shannon Briggs, we were supposed to fight in Qatar tomorrow, but unfortunately some things didn't go according to plans, and so I'm not in Qatar, so it's not going down. So I'm hoping to still fight him before I get too old. But right now I'm just having fun. I'm doing this pro wrestling, Japanese. I always wanted to do Japanese style pro wrestling because it is MMA. Basically, it's basically like a fight. And I just want to have fun. But you told me about you reminded me about one championships. I ain't seen no heavyweights over there, but I'm sure they got some.
Oh yeah, they do. Yeah, they have. I mean, the cool thing about one championship, you don't have to cut weight, so you just show up. The weight class you want to fight at, hydration test, you pass it, then you get to fight. And it's kind of like Pride rules, Dream rules, where you can knee the opponent on their ground, but you can't hit, you can't stomp. So if you're serious about it, man, I'll put a word in for Chatri. Yeah. I'll say, hey, Chatri, I think Rampage Jackson wants to fight. You think
what
about
they paying? What they paying? They paying
Don't
millions?
worry about it. That's a whole other conversation, dog. Don't worry about what I'm getting, okay? We already went through this before.
I ain't worried about your money. I'm just saying, are they paying millions? Yeah, that's a yes or no.
They pay good money. They pay good money, dog. They probably pay good money for Rampage.
No, okay, then. Say less.
Okay, we'll see. Now, Michael, producer, you got anything for my man Rampage? We let him go.
Hey, what's up, Rampage?
What's up, man? I like that.
Yeah, representing Jackson. Shout out to Bear.
Yeah.
But I have a question for you. You, as a former opponent of John Jones, I want your take on the pound for pound debate, because Dana White made a lot of headlines saying that he thought Jon Jones is pound for pound over Islam. What's your take on that? Islam Makhachev or Jon Jones, #1 pound for pound right now?
You know, goddamn right now, Islam Makhachev is a pound for pound. After Islam posted how many people he spot, and then Jon Jones spot one person, it said sorry. It's like, I mean, there's got to be a point in time. Go ahead, Rampage. I'm sorry. This is your question. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I'll shut the fuck up. I'll shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Struck a nerve. See, have you ever fought Islam?
Me? No, I never fought Islam.
Well, shut the fuck up and let me talk. I fought one. I fought one of them. God damn it. I fought Jon Jones. So this, I'm gonna tell you this. I understand the argument is that Jon Jones haven't fought that much in recent times, but I think and I'm not trying to agree with Dana White at all, you know what I'm saying? You got to love Uncle Dana, because he did a lot for this sport that we all love, right? So you got to show the man respect. I think what he's saying is overall, you know, the time that Islam was in the UFC and the time that Jon Jones was in the UFC, that's what you're talking. You're not just talking about who's pound for pound in the last 10 fights, on the last 5 fights, or in the last 12 months, the last 24 months. He's talking about overall in MMA, you know what I'm saying, right now, because he could have said Horace Gracie, you know what I'm saying?
That's true.
The best from pound to pound from right now, you know what I'm saying? But Jon Jones has never lost. He got one loss on his record, and it's because he did some illegal shit. You know, elbow in the back of the head or something that they should have just called it a no contest. Because I know Jon Jones is a dirty fighter, but I don't know. It shouldn't have been a loss on his record, because I saw that fight and to check it out, and they didn't have to get the guy a loss, right? But Islam, I've only seen him fight like a handful of times, and yes, he's really good and everything, but he's lost. And in my opinion, I think when Dana White said Jon Jones is pound for pound best right now, he's thinking throughout his whole UFC career, not the last couple of years.
That makes sense. I can see where you're coming from. Like, that's one thing I've always respected about Dana White. He always keeps it real. I was having, me and the wife. It was me, T Wood, the wife, and his wife, and the wife was smoking weed with Snoop Dogg, and I was sitting there having a conversation with Dana White. I think he was just trying to, get underneath my skin to make me fight TJ Dillashaw, and he was drinking Bud Light. He goes, you know who the pound for pound best fighter in the world is, Demetrious? I said, who? He goes, Conor McGregor. I was like, he just fucking lost. What are you talking about?
Who said that? Snoop Dogg?
Dana White. And I said, Dana, I was like, he just lost. He goes, doesn't matter. He'll fight anybody, anytime, anywhere. And I was like, Dana, you fucking high as fuck right now. You been smoking that stuff with Snoop Dogg, right? So I always try to take what he says for a grain of salt. But when I look at it, your perspective, how you look at Islam's whole career, you look at Jon Jones' whole career, yes, I can see you can say he's the pound for pound best. Yeah. But when I look at the last...
But hold on, just don't skate over this. Did you say your wife will smoke weed with Snoop Dogg?
Yes.
How in the fuck you gonna let your wife smoke weed with Snoop Dogg? How you gonna let Snoop Dogg smoke out your wife, bro?
Well, I was there hanging out with them. I just wasn't smoking weed.
You don't smoke weed. You don't indulge, huh?
No.
Yeah, that's good. But even though you don't indulge, you wouldn't take it as a achievement to smoke weed with Snoop Dogg one time?
So, you know what? If my brother, he got schizophrenic and bipolar from smoking weed, so I've always been scared of marijuana at the time. So, but my wife, she goes, shit, I'm smoking with fuck Snoop Dogg. Y'all know what you fuck.
Yeah. You could have been like Bill Clinton. You just didn't inhale, just hit it. Then
they all look at me like this, motherfucker. If you don't inhale that good shit, I'm gonna whoop your ass. So
they would know you would have coughed up a lung if you would inhaled it. I think he probably smoked some fucking harsh shit.
Exactly. So that's why I didn't touch it. But she did. She said she had it was a good time or whatnot. But
yeah, it's a good experience.
Back to the scope of the thing, it's like, so okay. I've always respected about Dana White. He says what it is. But when I look at the last 2 to 3 years, there's got to be a point in time where, somebody's achievements and how active they've been fighting and defending the belt has to overcome the past, right? Because then Jon Jones will always be the pound for pound best fighter in the world, even if he never fights. You know what I mean? So I think, like, currently right now at the top of the list, it should be Islam Makhachev, right? But if you look at like the last 30 years in MMA, then I can see Jon Jones, but I think Islam's been putting the work. He's been grinding. Yeah. He's been defending the belt. Nothing against Jon Jones. I mean, he fought, I can't remember his last fight, who he fought in at light heavyweight, but he fought Cyril Gane, and you look at the guys that Islam Makhachev has fought, the skill level of the grappling and the striking is way far superior to Cyril Gane, and that's no disrespect to Cyril Gane. He's a striker. He's not a grappler.
Cyril Gane. Now that Ariel called me out on it. Cyril Gane.
Cyril Gane.
Not Gane.
Hey, shut the fuck up. Cyril Gane.
You
gave him a Nigerian name. Is he Nigerian or something?
No, he's European.
He's French.
He's French. That's European, right?
Yeah. So he's African descent, right?
Yeah, something like that. So you look at the Cyril, you see like the skill level. It's just not the same. So
right.
It's always interesting, right?
I understand the argument because Islam, he's finishing people and knocking them out, and Jon Jones, like I said, right? You just forget when somebody don't fight as much. You forget, and he's been injured and stuff like that. I'm not taking up for him or being biased because I lost to him, but I just think like when it comes in my mind, who's the baddest person, you know what I'm saying, in the UFC, if I'm finna go into this dark alley and, you know what I'm saying, and they say you can have one person with you to help you fight, I'm going to say Jon Jones. I'm not going to say Islam. You know what I'm saying? That's me the way I think. I think right now.
I don't know, man. I think you're picking the wrong person. I think Jon Jones might rob you and join sides with the other guy. Islam. He was like, my brother. We died together. We're gonna wrestle together. We're gonna die together. Jon Jones goes, hey dog. Yeah, about that.
I'm gonna tell you something. What I think I know about Jon Jones. Even though I've talked shit on Jon Jones about being a dirty fighter over the years, make fun of him for eye poking and stuff like that, and make fun of him for, you know, saying not walking out to the song "I'm in love with the Coco" when he got that scandal. I've made fun of him over the years, but he knows it's not personal. I just like to laugh and joke around. I think that if I was in a dark alley and I was about to get jumped or get robbed by some guy, I think Jon Jones, if he was with, I would rather have Jon Jones there with me. I'm like, because I know me and Jon Jones together, we can fuck up some motherfuckers, and he probably gonna do most of the work.
Yeah, no, don't get me wrong. I think they're both great. I love Jon Jones. I love Islam. I think it's great. I think it's a great argument. I think they're both the best pound-for-pound, best fighters in the world. I have Jon Jones as my GOAT. So I always love to ask that question. That was Michael. So Rampage, where can people find you? How can they support you? This is your opportunity to let people know where they can find you, support you, and get ready for that Japanese wrestling match before we let you go.
You guys can hit me up on my socials. It's Rampage for real on most of my socials. I think on TikTok, which I don't use that much, is I think it's Rampage Jackson. And you know, you guys can check me out there on my socials. I post everything that I'm doing, and thank you guys for supporting me all through the years. Much love to all the Rampage fans out there, all my day ones. I got nothing but mad love for you guys, and I appreciate you having me on, Mighty Mouse. Thank you. I really love your show. I love what you do for MMA. I love everything about you except for when you didn't hook me up with the Xbox sponsor years ago.
You've been mad, Rampage. You've been like, motherfucker, I thought you were making money. I was like, I'm not making money. You'd be like, great, now I'm not making fucking money.
I'm still salty about it, though, because I asked you, and you just looked at me dead in the eyes, and you said, no.
What? Well, Rampage, you know I got nothing but love for you, man. And thank you so much for coming on the show, man. I've always been a big fan of you, man. I always love being in your presence and hanging out with you guys at the Jackson, hanging out with you at the Jackson house and all the other boys. Ladies and gentlemen, if you guys enjoyed this episode of the Mighty Cast, please do yourself a favor, like, subscribe. Also, hit the bell to never go live and go give my boy Rampage Jackson a follow on all his social media, and look out for his next outing in Japan, where he's taking on a Japanese wrestler, so he can finally fulfill that one dream of his to do some pro wrestling. We will see you guys in the next one.
You just say something about a Jap? You just said something about a Jap.
I said Japanese. I'll stumble on my words, but I got it right, damn it.
Yeah, okay.
Can I close the show out or not, motherfucker? Can I close it out or not? Shut your black ass up. Let me finish. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll catch you guys at the next one. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of the Mighty Recap, and this is where we recap everything that we just talked to or digested from our guest. And our last guest was Rampage Jackson, absolute legend of the sport of mixed martial arts. The man has done movies. The man has fought all around the world in PRIDE UFC, Bellator, and now he's basically going to be competing in a Japanese wrestling event, I believe under Josh Barnett. But I think the interesting thing that I took away from the conversation with Rampage is, one, he just wrestled. I mean, he played football, but that football turned into like a gang beat him up or whatever. And then he joined wrestling, but he thought he was doing pro wrestling. I think he was kind of playing a little bit there. But you can kind of see each time he wrestles, there's so many things online of him always power bombing people. It's like his signature. Right, I think the last time we saw a powerbomb in mixed martial arts was our good friend Aljamain Sterling, where he powerbombed his last opponent. But you had Rampage Jackson, amazing career in Pride. You know, I think the biggest loss he had in Pride was Vanderlei Silva and Shogun Hua. But the Ricardo Arona slam was absolutely amazing. Him coming over to the UFC, avenging his loss against Marvin Eastman, taking out Chuck Liddell to become the light heavyweight champion of the world, and defending and unifying the belts of UFC and Pride. This is when the UFC purchased Pride. A lot of people don't remember that unification bout. I remember I was watching my friends at the house, and then him leaving the UFC, going to Bellator. They come back to the UFC with that tricky situation, and then now he is basically, I think his last career was in Bellator. I can't remember his last fight is, but it was a good conversation because we always hang out when each time we're in California and I'm at the Jackson house, and we're always having a good time, good vibes, and it's always hilarious how Rampage it's just fucking funny. Like I can talk to him. I think the podcast would have gone on for another hour and a half because there's so much more we could have talked about.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting because you guys brought it up and I had my computer in front of me, so I looked it up. When you fought Horiguchi, I thought that was pretty interesting that Rampage was the co-main event of that. And at least according to him, I don't know how much to believe this, but he said to you during the interview that he was signed to Bellator and UFC, but which I somewhat believe it because he fought like Bellator, then randomly had this UFC fight in your co-main event, the co-main event of your fight versus Horiguchi, and then he never fought in UFC again. He wins the fight, he never fights in UFC again, so I guess that does bring some validity to it, but I thought that was interesting that he claimed he's the only fighter ever to fight in UFC still under Bellator contract.
Yeah, I remember that. It was an interesting time. Right? Because I remember we fought on multiple cards together because I never forget, I don't know if that was a card, but I remember he was at the press conference pissed off playing on his PS Vita, and then he fought and he went back to Bellator, and it was almost like, is this guy in Bellator or he's in the UFC? But it makes sense how he had to come back and fight that one last fight off his contract and then go back to Bellator. And I always love when athletes, when they leave the UFC, they always say they make better money, because I do believe that. I believe there's athletes out there when they do leave the UFC, if they have a big name. You know, Anthony Pettis is another one, Sergio Pettis, myself, Nate Diaz is about to box Jorge Masvidal. Jorge Masvidal also, I think he's still with the UFC, but the UFC kind of gave him the green light. Conor McGregor, that's the biggest paycheck he's ever made, is outside of mixed martial arts. So I think there's some merit to when Rampage Jackson is saying that, like, hey, I make great money at Bellator, and there's other athletes out there who make really, really good money as well. I'd be kind of curious to see how he does in this Japanese pro wrestling thing, even though this is something he has always wanted to do since he was a kid. And I think him finally able to live out his dream to do a pro wrestling match is going to be dope. And how he talked about Paramount dropping the ball. Well, Bellator Paramount, that was the owner of Bellator, dropping the ball and put him into movies, wrestling, and all that stuff. But a little bit behind the scenes of, you know, when he signed with Bellator, all of the opportunities he could have had, or they wished, they told him that he was going to be able to have when he signed with Bellator.
What I thought was maybe the funnest answer of the whole interview was when I asked about Islam and Jon Jones. A good perspective from Rampage that he fought Jon Jones, and he kind of said to you, have you fought Islam or Jon Jones? And you're like, nope, I haven't done that. But so just to follow up on that, because you wanted to say a lot more about that. What's your take on that hot topic of? Yeah, I know you think Islam should be pound for pound number one.
Yeah, I think so. I think Islam right now, if you look at his resume, and I understand Rampage Jackson Jackson's, understanding of what Dana White's saying too. But at some point in time, Jon Jones is not going to be the pound for pound best fighter in the world. Just like myself, at one point in time, I was the pound for pound best fighter in the world, right? I got it by default, I guess you can say, because Jon Jones got injured or test positive. I don't know what the fuck it was at the time. And I got bumped up to pound for pound best fighter in the world on the UFC ranking and under MMA Junkie and Sherdog and MMA Fighting. But when you look at what Islam Makhachev has done in the last couple of years, he's beat Charles Oliveira. He's beat Dustin Poirier. He's beaten everybody he's been put in front of, and he's been finishing these guys, right? If you look at Jon Jones' last fight and you look at the guys that Jon Jones has fought compared to Islam, I would have to say, and it's no disrespect to the guys that Jon Jones has fought, I would say those guys aren't as well-rounded, right? Like you look at Charles Oliveira versus, Cyril. Charles Oliveira is a more well-rounded athlete in mixed martial arts, stand-up, jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai. He's more well-rounded than the guys that Jon Jones has fought. And he's also been active, right? So if a champion has been active, and granted Jon Jones is injured, so he's going to be coming back fighting Stipe Miocic, where Stipe Miocic hasn't fought since he got knocked out by Francis Ngannou, right? So you look, you sit back, you take a step back, and you look, and it's like, dude, I understand Jon Jones is one of the greatest of all time. So is Anderson Silva, so is GSP, and so is myself. But Anderson Silva, GSP, when they weren't as active, they weren't on the pound for pound best fighters in the world. They weren't on the top of the list. Right now we have Jon Jones, who's not on our list. The guy he's about to fight next hasn't fought in 3 or 4 years, right? Like you look at how long it's been since Stipe's fought. Francis has already fought 2 boxing matches. And Stipe hasn't fought once. Granted, they're running for this big fight, Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic. So I think right now Islam Makhachev is the best pound fighter in the world just due to the championships, him finishing people, and his activity. Now, once again, like I said, I understand. If you look at the lifespan of those guys' careers, yes, absolutely, we can say Jon Jones pound for pound best fighter in the world. But you look at my span of my career, there's an argument that says, and I'm so active. I've been knocking people out, flying knees and shit and all that stuff. So I just think that right now, I think Islam Makhachev, we don't look at the whole entire career of one athlete. We look at what the person's done in the last 2 to 3 years. And I'll have to say it's hard to argue with Islam's resume that he's not the pound for pound best fighter in the world right now.
Yeah, and about the activity, looking at this graphic that I have in front of me since 2021, okay?
Yep.
Islam Makhachev, these are his wins. Dustin Poirier, Volkanovski twice, Charles Oliveira, Bobby Green, Dan Hooker, Thiago Moises, and Drew Dober. Since 2021, all those guys I just listed, Jon Jones, Ciryl Gane is the only one. All those guys I just listed. And then, and once again, we did it. You could go and take a look back. We did a GOAT mountain. Who we had a GOAT. We both had Jon Jones number 1, but that's not the debate we're having right now. It's who's pound for pound, who's been the most active. So I'm gonna agree with you there.
And
yeah,
who did Jon Jones fight before Ciryl Gane? Gone.
Let me pull that up. Obviously, he was a light. Was it Thiago Santo or was it here? I'm gonna pull it up.
I can't remember. But right there, and when you said that, I was Volkanovski twice. That's a champion. Charles Oliveira, also another champion. Dustin Poirier, an interim champion.
Oh, it was Dominic Reyes. I didn't realize that was the last fight he had before moving up.
Wow, when was that?
That was February 2020. Then he did not fight again for almost exactly 3 years.
Exactly,
March
right?
2023.
So see, that's what I'm talking about, right? And that fight against Dominic Reyes, I saw a clip recently on Twitter saying like Dominic Reyes kind of gave it to him, where Jon Jones was a little bit in trouble. But I just think like you look at, and all the guys that Jon Jones has fought, not one of those guys has been a champion in recent years, obviously because Jon Jones is there, but that just shows how competitive lightweight division is compared to light heavyweight, right? I mean, at one point in time, light heavyweight was the main premier division. You had Lyoto Machida, Jon Jones, Vitor Belfort, Mauricio Shogun Hua. You had some killers in that division. Now you look at lightweight division, lightweight still right now is probably one of the most competitive divisions with Charles, Armin, Islam, at one point Habib. It's just a very, very stacked division. So I mean, like I said, I think Islam is the pound-for-pound best fighter right now in the world, and I think one day Islam will make it on a GOAT mountain if he keeps up what he's doing. I think a lot of the things is he just got to stay healthy and keep long active, and especially if he goes up and fights at 170 against Leon Edwards. I mean, it's hard to deny that man on the mountain. We'll have to kick one of those guys off and bring him up there.
I'd like to see him fight Armin Sarukian first because I think Armin is a very worthy challenger. They actually fought before, close competitive fight. So I would like to see that fight before 170. But I think if he gets past Armin, he's beaten practically every challenger. And he's already beat Armin too. So that'd be Armin twice and everyone else in that division. But but getting it back, going back to Rampage. So I thought it was interesting. Another part that I liked of the interview, the one championship. Let's get this guy signed to one championship. Let's have him go against Anatoly because I think that would be a very marketable fight. We got Anatoly, the 3-division one championship champion. So how badly do you want to see that fight in one championship?
That'd be a sick fight to watch. You know, I know Anatoly's been more active. I know not John Jones. I know Rampage Jackson has been focusing more on boxing because he's supposed to fight Shannon Briggs. And I think that's a very, very hard fight for Rampage Jackson because, once again, Rampage has been focused on boxing when Anatoly's been fighting the best in the world. Where Rampage's last fight, I can't remember what it was, but I feel like it was Fedor Emelianenko. And that was a long time ago when Bellator was still ran by Scott Coker. So Rampage Jackson has been out of the competition game for, I would say, at least 3 to 4 good years. So, you know, I think if he wanted to come to one championship, I think they could put something together, have him fight another legend, maybe have him fight Mauricio Shogun Hua, or have him fight, Sugar Rashaad Evans, because those two were going back and forth. But I think Rashaad Evans and Rampage Jackson, they're working on trying to do a boxing match. And that's the cool thing now is you don't have to sign with a big promotion in order to make fights happen. I mean, look at Nate Diaz versus Jorge Masvidal. They're about to fight. You look at Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson. That what promotion is throwing this on? It's Jake Paul's promotion that's throwing it on. The most valuable player, MVP, whatever the hell it's called. So I think if Rampage and Sugar Sean Evans wanted to do it, I'm sure there would be a network. Triller can throw it. I mean, like I said, man, I feel like right now is the best time to be a combat sports fan because there's so much stuff going on. I mean, they just announced Bare Knuckle Fighting and Ryzen are co-promoting, and we're gonna see we see Mike Perry in fucking Ryzen Bare Knuckle Boxing in Japan. So, but yeah, I'm excited to see what Rampage does next. I think it's going to be the Japanese wrestling first, and then after that, hopefully we can finally see him do a boxing match with Sugar Rashaad Evans or Shannon Briggs. Hopefully we can do it before Shannon Briggs gets too old and ends up in a wheelchair.
Yeah, and bringing up boxing, keep an eye out for DJ. He's going to actually be at the Tank Davis Frank Martin fight in Las Vegas. That's going to be this Saturday. So how much are you looking forward to being I don't know if you'll be front row. Hopefully they give you the VIP treatment, but being in very good company, seeing that fight in Vegas.
Dude, I'm super pumped, man. It's been a long time since me and my wife been on a Vegas trip with no kids. So that's the most thing I'm looking forward to, right? Going to Vegas with her. And then this will be my first boxing match I've ever gone to. Big fan of Gervonta Davis. I mean, Gervonta Davis, absolutely stud, athletic as hell, fast, undefeated. He beat Ryan Garcia. We actually did a breakdown. I'll be dropping this week as well. And then, Frank Martin, don't know much about him. I watched his fight. He does a couple things that are a little interesting that I've seen, but super excited. And I'm grateful that PBC is bringing me out to cover this fight. I won't be able to do a live instant reaction because I won't have my camera there, but I'm excited to go enjoy some fights without breaking them down, and I'm starting to fall in love with boxing because, like I said before, I do feel like boxing is a little more exciting than MMA. I feel like as I become covering the sport, I like to follow their stories, right? And I think right now the biggest story in mixed martial arts going in the rest of June, we'll go over right now. We have Hamzat taking on Robert Whittaker, and then at the end of the month we have Michael Chandler fighting Conor McGregor. There's a lot of things that everybody was worried about, like, is Conor going to fight? Is Chandler going to fight? A little, some drama there. And then previously we just had K Rotolo. He made his mixed martial arts debut, beat the guy Blake Cooper. I had no worries. I thought he was going to beat him pretty handily once he gets the fight to the ground. And then we also had Mikey Misimichi taking on Gabriel Souza, envision him getting revenge against Gabriel Souza. He did that. So for me, there's so many good fights. Like, oh man, you know watch Rodtang fight? Ain't nobody fucking beating Rodtang. The biggest thing for Rodtang, the motherfucker can't make weight. You look at Taiwan Chai versus Smoking Joe, a little controversy there, but I'm not. Those stories don't get me up and excited. But for me, Gervonta Davis, if he gets past Frank Martin, hopefully we can see Shakur Stevenson versus Gervonta Davis, or we can see the rematch for Gervonta Davis versus Ryan Garcia. So I think there's a lot of stories all over the place in combat sports with boxing, mixed martial arts, and even grappling. You have ADCC coming up along with Craig Jones Invitational. Luke Rockhold's joining the Craig Jones Invitational. The winner gets $1 million. And if you just sign up for the Craig Jones Invitational, you get $10,000. So a lot of stuff going on right now in the combat world, and I'm happy to be able to cover it. And it's going to be a good time covering the sport this summer.
Yeah, shout out to Cade Rutolo, friend of the show, Mighty Cast guest, also Jackson athlete. No, it was cool seeing his performance. We were texting as we're watching it. Like, I was super impressed. 21-year-old. I think he has a huge future in MMA. He's first going to have that Mikey grappling matchup in Denver in September, but I thought that was cool to see. And obviously we had Rampage on the show as well, another Jackson athlete. And DJ, you got yourself a code, right?
Yes, got a code. The code is MIGHTY. If you use my code at jackson.com, you use code MIGHTY, that'll save you $50 on your Jackson chain. Yeah, man, it was a great time talking to Rampage and with K Rotolo. I'd be excited to see what he does, right? Like, a lot of guys, when they fight, I want them to see them fight all around the world. Don't just stay in one organization. Granted, I stayed a long time with UFC, but I also did a long time with one championship at 5 to 6 years. So I'm super excited to see what his story unfolds to be in mixed martial arts. And also, what does Rampage Jackson do next after the Japanese pro wrestling? So ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed this episode of the Mighty Recap, please leave a message, like, subscribe. And I am your host, Demetrious Johnson, and my co-host, Michael Wandover. We will see you guys at the next video.